everybody. Erin Lee here of heavenlymessenger.com, bringing you this week's Oracle Chats. You may notice that I am here just on my lonesome, and that is because my beautiful guest host, co-creator, Miss Bobbi Roundtree, it was her birthday yesterday, and so she is taking some time to fully and completely celebrate and integrate. And you know how sometimes you have lots that's going on and you have these ideas about what you're going to do, and then some things happen and some things don't, and you just need to settle into the experience that you had. I think that's where Bobbi is today. So we weren't 100% sure if she was going to be able to join me live today or not. And so that was why you may have noticed a post this afternoon that said it was going to be both of us, but it's just me. So thank you so much for joining me at this later time. I know that we usually start at 3:30 Pacific, but I was actually taking a past life regression certification course today, which was a huge amount of fun. It was incredibly interesting, and it didn't end. It was supposed to end at 5. I ended up leaving at 20 to 6 because I knew I was going to have to eat before I came and joined you guys. So yeah, today is a come as you are day. So as I said, I've been in class all day today since like 9 o'clock, 8:30 this morning. So I'm still kind of in my cozy jammies. I've got my blanket here. My hair is a little bit of a mess. So thank you for accepting me as I am. And it's wonderful to see all of you. And hello to Suzanne. Hi, Suzanne. It's great to see you. Thanks for joining me this evening. So tonight, I wasn't exactly sure what we were going to talk about. So please feel free to drop your questions or comments or experiences that you wanted to chat about in the comment section. We don't do readings on the Oracle Chats show. And the reason for that is because for me, when I am like up and running and functioning and doing my thing on Tuesday nights, I have my own full hour show that I do readings on, and it just doesn't make sense to do readings twice. And my hope is that Miss Bobbi Roundtree will also be starting her own readings show as well, because I know she has a lot of fun doing that. So stay tuned. It's been kind of a crazy summer for everybody. Hello to Brianne. It's wonderful to see you. Oh, Carrie, thank you. I so appreciate that. And yes, we are all goddesses or gods here today as well. So yeah. Well, since we don't have any questions coming in just yet, I'm feeling guided to talk a little bit about the experience that I had today. And first of all, I'll just say I've always kind of been torn when it comes to past life regression work. And the reason for that is not because I don't think it's incredibly powerful and incredibly healing, but a lot of it has had to do with the way that I see people speaking about the experiences that they've had with past life regression. And one of the things that I found is that a lot of people see the experiences that they've had through their past life regression or through past life readings that they've received, that they take on the trauma that they went back to experience to kind of heal and understand and unravel what's happening here. So rather than having like a really healing benefit and healing impact to it, it becomes part of the story and the narrative of the current experience that they're having. And so instead of unraveling the ball of twine of that's needing to be healed, it just kind of adds to it and it gets more knotted and more complicated. So I was really surprised when I kept getting these nudges to go and take this course in this class. And I had a body code session. I don't identify my clients, but I had a body code session with an awesome client who is part of our Orkellian community on Friday, and it popped up. I'm like, oh man, it's this weekend. It's on Sunday that this class is happening. And I think I'd had 3 or 4 pushes that I'd received over the last month, I said, you know what, I'd better do it. So that was what took me to the class today. And I have to say, I'm incredibly glad that I did, because one of the things that it gave me was it gave me a new framework for working with people and connecting with people. And it really showed me how we can use the healing from past life regression work to really help release things that are happening in our current time. And that the fear and the concern that I had around my clients taking it on and creating it into like more drama that they can fuel the story with, I came to the realization that that has to do with how I frame it. And then whatever somebody takes from there and runs with it, that's part of what they're here to experience. So that was pretty cool and exciting. And Brienne's saying, Brienne's saying that she is super interested in past lives. Yeah, I have a renewed interest in past life as well. And Miss Bobbi Roundtree is joining us. Hi, Bobbi. And she's asking if I saw us in a past life. And you know what? I didn't specifically see actually anybody that I knew in the past life, that the past life experiences that I had. But it was certainly really interesting, and it brought a couple of things up. So you know what, I'm going to and hello to Sarah. Sarah's just joined us. It's great to see you. So has anybody here had their own past life experience? If you have and you want to share it, drop it into the comments. I think that's a really cool thing to talk about. And I'll start actually with the very first past life experience that I had. I was about 14 years old, and I had this spontaneous experience where this woman, who I later came to realize was me in a past life, and she came through as a couple of years older than I was, and she showed me lots of different things. I'm not exactly sure of the time. I would have guessed based on like how I was dressed, 1400s, and somewhere in the UK. So I'm not sure if it was like Wales or Ireland or England. But the thing that I saw was the big cliffs and the crashing waves. So it was on the ocean. And yeah, I saw lots of different pieces of the life that she lived, different things that were happening in this particular lifetime. She or I uh, was doing things with like herbs and stuff, and a whole pile of things. But the interesting thing to me was that she continued to come back through different times in my life. And whenever she came back in, like I'd have an experience with her again, she was always a bit older. She was always about the same age that I was. And it was really interesting because a lot of the experiences that we were going through, even though we were, I mean, almost 1,000 years apart, a lot of the themes were the same, were really similar. And I realized that I hadn't seen her in a couple of years, and it kind of made me wonder, well, maybe, in that lifetime, maybe she didn't live past 40, and that was kind of it. Or maybe I'll have an experience with her later when it's closer to my time to pass. So it's really kind of interesting. And Carrie says here, it was mentioned to me I was a Polynesian male. I do love the islands. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we talked about today is that often the past lives that we experience, it's we often have experiences in different cultures. So like for me, I was Canadian born, but very close to me is my European, particularly in the UK, that heritage. And so it would be highly unlikely, though not impossible, for me to have had an experience within like the last couple of lifetimes in that same role. Because part of the reason that our soul comes to the earth is to have different experiences. And certainly the experience that Carrie has as a woman living in Canada would be very different from the experience that she likely had, her soul likely had as a Polynesian male. So it's really interesting to see how that can have an effect and an impact. Hello to Ruth. I'm so glad that you joined us. Thank you for popping on this evening. So what about anybody else? Does anybody else have any past life experiences that they've had? Oh, Brienne, your comment just came in. Let me see. So Okay, so Brianne's saying in one of my readings, I had questions about my youngest child, some very creepy behaviors, and thinking he was a serial killer in a past life. But apparently, our spirits had crossed paths in a previous life. I was the caretaker of this child, whom lived with their parent in a surgery house. Oh, cool. He was just small and used to enjoy watching people have these painful surgeries performed. Oh, that's really, really interesting. And it's interesting on lots of different levels. One, that often the people who are significant to us in this life, so a child would certainly be one of those people who is usually significant in a lifetime. Usually we will have had either previous lifetimes with each other or previous experiences with each other in different lifetimes. And I'm going back to Bobbi's comment earlier there. I didn't necessarily see us in a lifetime, but you better believe we were definitely part of one. um and yeah, one of the things that can happen, and part of the benefits of working with healing past lives, is the energies that are unresolved from a life that our soul has experienced can come and thread into experiences that we have in this life. And one of the interesting examples that was given by my teacher today was that he had had a reading with a woman who identified herself as having been older, because she talked about she's not as young as she used to be. And the reason that she was coming to talk to him was because she had a hard time finding a mate and a partner in this life, and that was what she really wanted, was to experience relationship and partnership. And it wasn't that she hadn't been in relationships, but they just never worked out. And when he went and checked in on a past life level to see what was happening for her, he saw that she had lost her partner in a previous life, and that man, she was a woman in the past life, and that man was her world, and that was something that she never healed and never resolved. And so there was still a lot of pain with that, and each time in this life she went into a new relationship and a new beginning, then that old hurt and that old trauma would come up, and she would be the one who would end the relationship because it had such a significant impact. So it was really interesting to see what was coming through. And just popping back to what Brianne is saying is um, 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 about her youngest child, is that that's something that could have carried forward, but that it's something where healing can happen. Like, healing can go back to that child in that lifetime so that it doesn't come forward and have an impact on your child now. Awesome. Let me see. Pat saying, darn, missed the beginning again. That's okay. It's always available to watch it again, but we're glad that you're here. Pat saying, missed it. Oh, yes. I've already said that part. I think I know one of my past lives from a period in my life when I was very ill and I was slipping between worlds. Oh, wow. I saw this person who I knew was me. Do you see me as this person? And she's saying that she doesn't want to give any more detail. Well, we're not doing like specific readings today, but what I can say was that how do I say this? When I first started having past life experiences, it took me a little time as well to identify that the person that I was seeing was me, because it was something that happened spontaneously. Like, at that point, I didn't have any intention to see or to experience past lives. I mean, I was 14, although I had, like, an idea about it. The type of information that's so readily available to us today wasn't available to me at that time, and so it was, as I said, completely spontaneous. And what you're saying sounds like it was spontaneous as well. The experience that I've had so far with this particular past life, that just kind of comes in whenever, it does tend to come in at times when I'm having there are experiences that I'm going through that I'm wanting to understand, where maybe I'm feeling a little bit lost and a bit challenged. And it certainly sounds like that was part of the experience you were going through too, Pat. And one of the things that I was able to was able to do to really help me identify it was, well, actually, there were a couple of things. One, it was the same person over and over and over again who was coming through. And although I was seeing the experience like outside of her, I also saw it through her eyes as well. And there was just this feeling over and over again of, this feels very familiar to me. Like I've lived this and I've walked this, but I felt detached from it as well. So one of the things that I'd encourage you to do is ask, is this an experience that I had? Having gone through that, and I suspect that was, I mean, when I ask, it feels to me like that was a past life experience that you had. If you missed the beginning, you missed the part where I talked about the importance of not taking on what your soul experienced in a past life. So not taking on like the pain and the trauma that your soul may have gone through, because one, you are you, and that was a part of your soul that um, that experience is no longer present for you. There's an opportunity to learn and to experience. The other thing that I noticed about the experiences that I spontaneously had was that they in some way were reflecting a similar experience that I was going through. And so anyway, when I ask for you, Pat, it really does feel like that was a soul experience that you had. And particularly as you are slipping back and forth between the two worlds, because the reality of the physical world that we live in right now, that becomes a little bit wavy, and it really opens up your consciousness to be able to experience other things and different things. But again, I really want to remind you that anything that your soul experienced in that lifetime is not you, and you don't need to take any responsibility for it. And part of the reason that I mentioned that is Bobbi and I have had conversations about this in the past. And one of the things that I shared with her was, I know I've had a couple of lifetimes where I was really not a very good person. And how do you reconcile that with where you are today? And the thing is that every time we're given a life here, we're given the opportunity to reset and to make a change, to learn something new. We're given a new body, we're given new relationships and new circumstances. It's a different world that we're born into, and so it's a new chance and a fresh start, and everybody deserves that. So yeah. Okay, so Ruth's asking, so if I had passed away, I would become a spirit right away. Well, yes. And this might be a question that is better to ask when Bobbi's here, because her experience with the spirit world is much greater than mine. But yeah, the typical progression is we have a physical life here, and then we cross over to the other side. And on the other side, there's additional learning and almost like debriefing that we go through. There were things that we learned while we were here that we're conscious of. And then once we cross over, there are more things that we come to like a new awareness of or a new understanding of. And one of the things that Bobbi talks about is, at that time of passing, I hope that I have this intention right. At the time of our passing, we go through our whole life. Like it's kind of, it flashes before our eyes, that very stereotypical phrase. It sounds like it's very accurate. And so all of the things that we did, that we did to other people, that we didn't do, all of that comes to the forefront. And so we need to process that and learn from that. It's kind of like researchers who are doing experiments. After the experiment is finished, they spend a fair amount of time like analyzing all of the information and the data that they got from it. Well, that's exactly what our spirit does on the other side. And then at some point in the future, a decision is made on a soul level that it's time to come back down to the earth. And one of the things that we talked about today is Sometimes souls will stay up a lot longer. So, like, how long in between reincarnations? And sometimes reincarnation can happen relatively quickly, though typically there's about a minimum of 100 years. So it's not usual for, say, a grandparent to come back as a grandchild that's being born, simply because they just haven't had the opportunity to completely, debrief and to learn and to grow. And the circumstances and situations aren't right, because usually, when you leave and you learn on the other side, you want to make sure that the circumstances and the situation on earth have shifted and changed enough that it's worthwhile for your soul to come back and to have a new experience on the planet. And although, I mean, if we look at the last 50 years, certainly there have been a lot of shifts and changes that have happened in terms of like technology and stuff like that. But the overall circumstances haven't shifted all that much, to the point where somebody who passed away 50 years ago would benefit from reincarnating and being here again. So that's part of the reason that usually there's a bit of time. So I'm not 100% sure. I talked around a lot of things there, Ruth. I don't know if I clarified that. Oh, another thing is that once we cross over, after we've been there, we've done our debriefing and everything. My understanding, my experience so far has been that we could potentially choose to have a lifetime as a spirit guide. So we may decide, hey, it's not time. I'm not ready yet to go back and to have another life on earth, but I'm ready to support somebody while they're there. And I believe that spirit guides continue to learn through us, through the experiences that we have. And so that could be something that happens as well. But basically, I think the short answer to your question is yes. Yes, you do become a spirit, in terms of you no longer have a physical body, but you still have soul and their spirit. Okay, so Brianne's saying he used to have ideas of cannibalism, and would talk about how he missed it before he was 4 years old. And he had very different interests than kids his age, witches, the Wizard of Oz, etc. That's really interesting. So, the other thing that we could take from that too, is that there have been cultures where cannibalism has been accepted. And I'm not talking about well, I mean, there could be cannibalistic tribes and things that are still present today, but I would think that we would be going back in general a fairly significant time. It's possible that your son hasn't had a recent life on this planet, and that one of the last times that he was here, that was part of what his people did, and it could be that it was something that was more either ritualistic, or possibly out of necessity. I'm not sure. There are a lot of reasons. So just be aware that it isn't always something that is sinister, but just more like perhaps, as I talked about earlier, my family is Canadian, but like a very strong UK descent. And so, like, when I was growing up, when I went to my grandparents' house for dinner, it was always really overdone meat with potatoes and gravy and really well done soggy vegetables. And so, if I had come from, say, an Asian culture, an Asian background in a previous life, I might have said, wow, I really miss the flavor of seaweed, or I really miss, rice in my meals, because that was something that had been my soul's previous life experience. And here I was, eating food that was made with a lot of love, but had a very different taste and flavor. Yeah. Raina, hi. It's great to see you. Welcome. Thanks for joining the show. Jocelyn, we aren't doing readings today, but if you have some general questions, oh yeah, I see that you saw the sign. But if you have some general questions, would love to chat and connect with you. And Brian saying he's now the sweetest loving child. He is definitely a lover in this life now. That's awesome. Yeah. So, sometimes we go through shifts when as we get a little bit older. Oh, here we go. We've got our scammers on. So I see that this person has already messaged Reina. Reina, my apologies. We do get the spammers on. I've just blocked them, but I apologize if they've connected with anybody else. At the end of the show today, I found that this has been happening a lot on my page. Sometimes the reading spammers will come on and they will message people directly through their private messages, or they'll go on to their public profile pages and they'll send them messages. If that becomes a problem for you, first of all, my apologies, and I apologize on Bobbi's behalf as well if you're joining us through her social media as well. One of the things that I have said is you are more than welcome to go through and delete the comments that you've made, because we do keep this public for people later. Um, and we are looking at different ways to connect with you guys so that we aren't in such a public forum where the reading spammers pop on. So anyway, enough about them. Let me see. Sarah saying, in a past life reading, I had talked about certain struggles I had in those times. Found it interesting that my current life mirrored it. Yeah, absolutely. That was exactly the experience that I was having. And, if I look from a healing perspective, because for me, that's always my purpose and my intention when I connect with clients or with myself, is I want to promote healing. Um, Going to a past life where you're experiencing something similar, or where you've experienced similar types of struggles, makes a lot of sense, because there A, could be something that you can learn from it, or B, that there could still be like a cord and an attachment to that time that your soul is identifying and saying, hey, we're ready to let go of this. And so cord cuttings can be a really powerful tool that a person can use. One of the things that we talked about in the class, because I'm super excited about it, was if you identify that something that you are going through is something that's a holdover or a carryover from a previous lifetime. And some of those things could be things like, in previous lifetimes, you may have had taken a vow of poverty, or you may have intentionally shut down your gifts. So like your psychic and intuitive abilities, because, we certainly have a lot of history when people were persecuted and literally killed and tortured for that ability. And so if you had those abilities that were open and that you were aware of them, you may have intentionally shut them down in order to keep yourself safe or to keep other people safe. Like, say, for example, you were a parent, and there was a possibility that you were going to be persecuted or prosecuted and killed because of that. But then does the question go to your children? Are they then the children of witches? What's that going to do for their lifetime? So there are a lot of things that can have an impact on us today. And if you come to the awareness that that is something that is happening, one of the things you can do is you can do cord cuttings, and you can identify in your body where you're feeling that cord. So a cord is an invisible energetic bond, or like a string that is holding us or tying us to a person, situation, event, or place, that is either holding us down, it's drawing us back, it is sending negative energy to us, or it's taking positive energy from us, or it's keeping us in a pattern over and over again. And we can ask that that cord be fully and completely released. So I have identified that in at least one previous lifetime, I have taken a vow of poverty. What I can say is, I can say, I fully and completely cut and sever any vows of poverty I may have made in previous lifetimes, now and through all directions of space and time, because there would have been a reason for it at that time for me to take it. But I don't live in that world anymore. That's not the experience that my soul is having. It's not the experience that it came here to have. And so it no longer serves my best and highest good on a soul level to continue to go through that experience. So I can cut that and sever that. And that's true of things around romance or around family relationships or friendship relationships. It can be around your psychic and intuitive abilities. So again, like if you find that you're going through the same thing over and over again and nothing is working, ask, is this something from a past life that I can release and let go of? Lisa, hi, thanks for joining us. It's wonderful to see you today. And Ruth is saying, this is going back to the comment that she made about becoming a spirit right away, and she's saying, I thought it would come back and haunt somebody. And she did LOL, I'm joking, but Ruth, I'm not 100% sure you are joking. I know of people, I'm not going to name any names, Bobbi, who has already talked about intentionally going back and haunting people. So I'm sure that none of us would ever do that, because we are positive, loving beings of light. Brianna, hi, it's so good to see you. Brianna is in Bali right now having an amazing experience. Let me see. Oh, sweetheart, we aren't doing readings today, but it looks like you have been bitten by the travel bug. She's saying that she's in Bali. Where do we see the next adventure? Egypt, but also feeling somewhere else. And so, if you have a question like that, I mean, the fact that you're already feeling Egypt, that feels like that's a pretty wonderful place to go next. And kind of, yeah, I'm not going to go into that story. It's a little long and convoluted and doesn't directly speak to what you've been asking about. But when it comes to travel, wherever your heart is being called is a really great place to go. Okay, so Pat's saying, you talk about the review of the life, but do those passing feel the pain, damage they have inflicted on others, or is it just a blip for them? And she's saying, I'm not talking about my deceased child. That is a really great question, and I'm not 100% sure that I'm completely qualified to answer it. And the reason I say that is because that isn't where the majority of my experience is, because mediumship is only a small part of the work that I do. Pat, I'd kind of like to put your question on hold until Bobbi comes back. I'm pretty sure that we're going to be live together, the two of us, and I feel like she would have way more experience and expertise in answering that. What I have seen is that when they cross over, there is an experience of the things that have happened and that they've done, but I also see that it bypasses pretty quickly. And the example that I'm thinking of in particular is of a woman who I knew while she was here, because she was a client of mine. She was somebody that I loved very, very much. And through one of her children came and was asking about a sibling, and immediately the message that I had coming through was that any animosity or challenge that had been released, and and she completely let go of that as soon as she crossed over. And so like the things like money, or hurts that people did when they were or hurts that people caused, rather, when a person was here, they were able to see like the bigger picture of it, and that all that she was feeling and experiencing was love and compassion, and that she didn't want anybody to hold on to hurt or grief now that she was gone. I know that that doesn't specifically answer what you're asking about. But again, I feel like to get a really full answer, we want to talk with Bobbi about that one. So Pat, I'm going to make sure that I make note of the question that you're asking. And the next time Bobbi and I are live together, I'll make sure that we talk about it. Yeah. Cassandra, hello. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you for all of the love and the positive energy. I am sending love and positive energy right back to you. And you know what? That reminds me, I'd like to take a moment to just thank each and every one of you for being here, for being part of our community. You guys are awesome. And I love the way that you love each other and support each other and lift each other up while we're talking too. It's great to see. Brincy, aloha. I hope that I've pronounced your name properly. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so Cassandra's asking, how can I open up more spiritually? And at the risk of sounding a little bit like a broken record, because I know Bobbi and I say this a lot, and but it's really true and it's really accurate. One of the best things that you can do is make time to disconnect from the physical world. And one of the ways that we talk about doing that is through meditation. But I also see, when you are living in your day-to-day life, the more that you recognize the things that are happening around you that are outside of the day-to-day experience. So synchronicities, when you notice those, and synchronicity is one of those words that's kind of like a new age catchword. And sometimes people aren't fully and completely aware of what it means. So a synchronicity is when something happens outside of yourself that you have no control over, but that has meaning and significance to you. So for example, seeing 444 when you're questioning something, oh, yep, there it is, or 111, or any multiple number really that is catching your attention and saying, hey, look at me, pause and stop. Another really common or simple synchronicity might be thinking about something and you're listening to the radio and the song that comes on speaks to what you're thinking about. It's the thing that you're thinking about, it's in your head, and the song that comes on the radio, you have no control over that. Or actually, I guess I guess the more relevant and current example would be a song coming on your playlist when you have it on shuffle and you've got like 1,000 songs on your thing, and suddenly Alexa or Spotify or whatever decides to play this song for you. So the things that happen outside of yourself, the more that you notice those as being like messages from the universe, from spirit, letting you know that the communication is happening, the more that you recognize that, the more that it happens. The other one that Bobbi and I probably haven't spoken about too much lately is compassion. And this one might be more of an Erin one than a typically Bobbi one. But compassion has been one of the biggest things for me. It's particularly been coming up over the last couple of years as we have been in like pandemic, and things are outside of the usual flow and the norm, where people are feeling, dysregulated, and emotions are high, and stress is big, and we're not able to do the things that we usually do to bring ourselves into balance. Compassion has been one of the biggest, most amazing things to help deal with what's happening. And when we are able to move out of that place of stress and move out of that place of like the real world, the ego world, because that's really what it is, and we move into compassion, we're more able to connect with our soul, and we're more able to connect with God, source, universe, creator, the divine, whatever your belief system is, whatever works for you. To me, it's all one and the same. It's just different names for the same energy, in the way that a person can be Erin and sister and friend and, well, I'm not a mom, but I could be, and partner. And like, it doesn't change who I am. It's just different things that people call me, though they all call me Erin as well. So maybe that wasn't the best example, but you get what I mean. So yeah, when it comes to opening up more spiritually, it can have to do with the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. Oh my gosh, it's almost like Bobbi's here because I'm getting a really sexual example. So to help opening open up on a spiritual level, it's kind of like foreplay. And it's kind of like foreplay. I mean, you can have sex without any foreplay. Absolutely can. It can happen. It can be really good. It can be really amazing. And that can happen. You could have sex where you have, a little bit of foreplay leading up to it, like touch me there and touch me there. Oh, yeah, we're really good. And we're going to go for it. That can happen. Or you can have really amazing foreplay that starts first thing in the morning and goes all throughout the day until you're ready at night. And then boom, everything happens. The same is true with your spirituality. With your spirituality, you can say, "Hey, I'm going to take a moment right now. I am ready. This is going to be my moment. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to connect with God, source, universe, spirit, divinity, creator, whatever your belief system is. This is the moment." And it can be really good. You can say, "I am going to take a little bit of time. I'm going to prepare like an altar space, or I'm going to sit in a special spot, and I'm going to breathe for a couple of minutes and turning my phone off." And you can have that spiritual experience. Or you can wake up in the morning and every experience that you have can be a moment of spirituality, of connection. You can wake up in the morning and you can breathe. And before you start scrolling on your phone, or before you start interacting with your kids or your partner, you can say, "I'm going to take a couple of breaths for myself, and I'm going to invite angels, God, source, universe into my day today. And when I go to make my breakfast in the morning, I am going to infuse it with the love of being connected with God, source, and universe. And when I consume it, I am going to focus on the fact that I'm nourishing my physical body, that is housing my spirit, that's allowing me to connect and interact. And everything that I see can be, I can come into the amazingness of all of the things that have lined up for this moment to happen. So maybe I'm sitting and I'm eating my breakfast. If you drink coffee, maybe you're drinking your coffee and you look out the window and there's a little hummingbird that's eating at the feeder there. And you can take a moment and say, "Wow, look at that beautiful creation of our universe and the way that its wings flap. And isn't it amazing that I was able to put sugar and some water together and gave sustenance to this little bird that's then going to go off and have these other experiences because of what I did." So those are just little examples of how you can incorporate more spiritual experiences into your day. And Bobbi's going to be really disappointed that we started talking about sex and spirituality and she wasn't here for it. Ruth, I'm so glad that you joined us. I'm looking forward to connecting with you next time too. And Sarah's saying, "Oh, she really needs to hear about the cord cutting." Oh no, you feel like you really needed to hear. Good. So what you've gotten, I'm hoping, was good. But if you've just joined us, and because the comment is there, I'm going to quickly go through it again. So cords are energetic bonds that we form to people, place, things, situations, events. And the way that I like to describe them is it's that friend who you love and you see their call is coming up on caller ID. Again, some of my references are a little dated. And as much as you love them, you know that if you pick up the phone, that it's going to be all about them. It's going to be incredibly draining. You're not exactly sure how you're going to get off the phone. And even though you went into the conversation feeling great, you know at the end of it, you're going to feel depleted. That's basically the energy that that cords have, is they either pull positive energy from us or they send negative energy to us. And if you'd like to go through and do your own cord cutting, there are a couple of things that I like to do with it. First of all, I mean, you can say, "I fully and completely release any cords." That can be really beneficial. But what I like to do is I like to take a moment and see if I can feel in my body where these cords are. So I might close my eyes and breathe and relax and come into awareness of my body. And I'll just say, "Where am I experiencing this cord of X in my body?" And become aware of it. I like to work with angels, and Archangel Michael helps us with cord cutting and cord clearing. So you can say, "Hey, Archangel Michael, will you please come through and cut and sever this cord?" And often I'll go through a bit of visualization with it as well. Sometimes I'll see it as like an umbilical cord between me and whatever is on the other end. You don't necessarily have to identify it. If you do, you can visualize that. And sometimes it kind of just like falls away, just like a little umbilical cord like dries up and it falls away. Other times it like zaps itself and poof, it will go into dust. So see what's coming up for you with that. And then the other thing that I find really helpful, and it's kind of important, is I like to heal the area where the cord was connected to me. So you can't see me rubbing my stomach. So let's say that I've got a cord, or I had a cord that was right here, and Archangel Michael helped me to cut it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to send love and healing. I'm going to call on Archangel Raphael because he is the healing angel, and I'm going to ask them to heal this here. Because if I was the one who created the cord to this person, place, thing, situation, or event, then this is kind of like a pacifier. Like this was an area where I needed some help and love and healing. And instead of doing that on an unconscious level, I formed a cord to something. Or alternatively, that something formed a cord to me. And so there was the foundation of it is healing. There was a need for healing. It wasn't there. And so either I reached out or somebody else reached out, and it's like, this, you are my lifeline. I am going to take from you what I need to support myself. So regardless of why it formed, always there is need for healing. So send healing to it. And what that does is it sends healing to you. And I always send it to wherever the other end of the cord was. So if it's to another person, I send healing to that person. If it's a situation or another lifetime, I send healing to that, because I don't want that to reform. Sometimes the patterns are really well established, and sometimes you have to go through and cut the cords more and more and more because there's more healing that's needed. There are other healing things you can do, but just in general, sometimes you need to go through and cut it. But if the cord started off like this and you do the healing, when it forms again, then maybe it's only going to be like this and like this and like this. And eventually it'll just be like a little string. It'll be just, like a little tea bag string. And it'll be done. So there are lots of things that you can do with that, lots of ways that you can use it. But yeah, it's pretty powerful. Um, Love Miss, I'm assuming, sorry, Miss. Love Raven is saying, I told my fairy it would be a hair tossle when I visit. So kind of like this. I love that. That's awesome. Yes. So Sarah's asking, can those cords cause energy disturbances? Yes, absolutely. It can block things. It can, I wonder, Sarah, I'm going to ask you if you want to clarify exactly what you mean by energy disturbance, like interference in like the flow of energy, because it can definitely do that. It can prevent us from new situations. And the way that I'm seeing it to describe it to you is, say you're walking along and suddenly there's a string that appears at ankle height, and then you trip over it because you don't see it. That's one of the ways that a cord can have an impact. And that's just like a metaphor. I don't think I've ever seen energetic cords in that way. Maybe they do form that way, but I think that was just a metaphor to explain what was happening. Yeah, Pat, you are absolutely welcome. Pat just said that she appreciates my honesty, and I'm assuming that that's going back to and referring to not wanting to take on the question that she had asked because I don't have the experience. You know what? It's one of those things. I think it's really important to be able to recognize that, one, you don't know everything, and two, it's helpful to go to somebody who really does know. And I'm going to admit to you, I have had in the past experiences with being a little bit of a know-it-all, only because I research things and when I know something, I know something, but I don't know that. So Mary's saying, every time I'm sad, I hear songs that are like messages. Yeah, absolutely. I do too. And it really helps to lift you up, doesn't it? I have a song. It's it's by Bedouin Sound Clash, and they're a band out of Vancouver. It's a really old song. I think it's probably about 20 years old now, and it's called When the Night Feels My Song. and it will come on very randomly because it's such an old song. And anytime it comes on, it is always something. I've been thinking about something, I've been stressed about something, and it's my "Everything Is Okay" song. So yeah, it can be kind of neat to see if you have an "Everything Is Okay" song too. JC, hello. It's always so wonderful to see you. Thanks for joining me this evening. Um, okay. Boiling and or blessings water help. Hmm. I'm trying to I know that Carrie and I spoke about boiling water earlier this week, so I'm going to see if I can figure out what specifically you're asking about. Um, okay. So part of what I'm hearing has to do with like the purity of water and consuming water, and which should you do, boiling water or blessing the water? Um, that's a really good question. I mean, unless there is something in the water physically that you're wanting to get rid of, like a pathogen, or I'm hearing like burning off a chemical or something like that. Unless that is the purpose of boiling the water, sometimes we have turbidity in our water, in our water system, I should say, and it means that there's like bacteria and stuff, and you should boil it. That would be the only time that I would suggest boiling water in the Comox Valley, because overall we have really good water, and that's true of most of Vancouver Island, and I believe much of BC as well. Um, Otherwise, for me, the more that water is living, the more in harmony it is, for our bodies, and to help raise our energy and vibration, provided that your drinking water is safe to drink and consume. I lean more towards blessing water. There are a lot of different ways that you can do that. I know that Carrie has some really awesome charging plates where you could put water on top of the plate and it will charge the water. I've charged the water with crystals, and in the full moon energy, which is actually incredibly powerful. You can put stickers on your water bottle or your water container, with words. Dr. Emoto, I am 99% positive that that was his last name. It did many experiments on the power of words and energy with water. And if you Google his name and water, you will see the different experiments that he ran, like exposing water to classical music and compared to exposing it to like heavy metal or death metal, and you can see the energy, the formation of the water molecules, how different they are depending on what they have been exposed to. So my preference is always to bless over boiling, as long as there isn't a physical like pathogen that's present in the water that needs to be addressed, in which case boil or otherwise filter would be definitely the way to go. Yeah. Let me see. Oh, yes. And Sarah's saying cord cutting and Reiki sounds like a great combination. Yes, it absolutely is. I mean, cord cutting, there's so much opportunity for healing with that. And I mean, I love Reiki. It is a wonderful energy healing modality. And, I believe that everybody should learn at least their basic Reiki to learn how to channel energy so that you can offer healing to yourself and to loved ones. And it's a really great way to be able to like raise or speed up your energy and vibration. It just helps with your body's physical healing abilities too. Yeah. Okay, so Marie, you have a great question. How do you keep from feeling guilty about cutting the cords? So the way that I see it is that if it's no longer serving you, then it's no longer serving the other person either. So let's say, I think probably one of the things that might make a person feel guilty is if somebody has reached out to me and they've extended a cord to me because they're needing help and support for something, and they're draining energy from me. I am not a sustainable source of energy for that person to get help and support from. And that's kind of the way that I see it. My supply is very finite, where supply from, say, God, source, universe, that is infinite. So, do I want to have somebody plugging in to me when they could be plugging into a source that is far greater than me? Um, what what it does is it depletes your energy, and it can deplete your energy to the point where you are no longer able to function and support the people that you love and support. And so it really is kind of like that analogy where you need to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help anybody else, because if you pass out, not only are you no good to the people that you need to help and support, but then somebody needs to come and help and support you. So, from that perspective, that would be how I would start approaching getting over guilt. The other, and this can be a more difficult aspect to look at, the other aspect could be looking at why I might need to be able to be there for everybody, and to see if there's something else that's going on there that's saying, Erin, instead of like dealing with yourself and supporting yourself, why are you allowing yourself to be depleted to give to everybody else? Because there could be like a people pleasing energy that's coming up under that. And, one of the things that can happen is a codependency as well, that as much as that person needs me, I need them. And so a question to ask might be, is there something inside of me that needs to be needed? And if the answer is yes, I'm not doing a reading right now for you, Marie, but it's just popping up as being something to ask about. Is there something in me that needs that person to need me? And one of the things that you can do is say, hey, you know what? I really want to see the people around me thrive. And when they thrive, then I can thrive too. And it helps to lift both of us up. So severing a cord and letting go of a cord doesn't mean that you're letting go of a person or a relationship necessarily. It just means that you no longer want to be drained in order to support them, that there are other ways that that person can receive that support and that healing. And that's part of the reason when I cut cords, that I make sure that I send healing to the other end of it, because what whoever or whatever is on the other end of it, there's some sort of healing that's needed. Even if it was me on a subconscious level that was sending that cord out and was pulling energy from somebody, the fact that I've been pulling energy from somebody, that's depleted them and drained them. And my goodness, I am sorry for that. So let me send you some love and some healing and some apology. It's kind of like, I gave you my cold. Here, I'm going to bring you some chicken noodle soup. I hope you feel better soon. I didn't mean to share my germs. And so, see it as being an opportunity for both of you to do better and both of you to be better. I hope that answered your question, Marie. I don't think I've ever had anybody ask that before, and I just have to say how much I appreciate the fact that you are considering the needs of others when it comes to cord cutting. It is coming down to me first. I need to take care of me so I can continue to take care of other people. Yeah, and Sarah's saying yes, like blockages, absolutely. And Shannon, it's so funny because we just talked about basically the same question. I think Cassandra asked it, but let me see what you've got here. Shannon's asking, how can I be more spiritual? I don't really have time to meditate, even though I love it so much. I have two boys; they are 4 and 6. Busy mama. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm going to start off by saying I don't have children. I did have my ex-boyfriend had a 3-year-old son who lived with us for a year while we were together, so I have a bit of an idea. But I can't say that I have ever been in your shoes in terms of being a full-time parent to 2 young active children. And so you might say, hey, Erin, you're totally off base with what you're saying. And I can appreciate that. And I apologize in advance. One of the things I would do is see about incorporating it into their lives as well. And it's something that you can start by making a bit of a game with it. Hey, we're going to have some special quiet time. So bring in some tools, bring in some things so that it can be fun. Maybe you'll get 2 minutes with it. But it starts to set out the groundwork and the foundation. And my goodness, what an amazing gift to give to your boys as well. And if you were to include it with kids, I would take a look for meditations that are short. So just a couple of minutes, because often attention spans are really short at that point of time. And I would also look for ones that are specifically geared towards children and kids, and probably ones that involve some sort of movement. It's also something that you could make into a game. So right now we're going to move, and we're going to move through the room very quietly. We're going to breathe, and we're going to sense what we're feeling. So that's one way that it feels like you can incorporate it. The other thing is, again, I'm seeing you involving the kids, is taking a breath and taking a moment and noticing things, or taking a breath and taking a moment when they notice things. Kids, especially when they're still young and little like that, are such amazing teachers, and there's lots of opportunity. And in terms of who is closer to like being the most spiritual out of like all of us, it's probably your 4-year-old because she is still so close. Oh, you said boys. Sorry. He is still so close to the energy. Like he's still coming into our physical reality and awareness. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are opportunities to connect there. But all that said, let me just take a look and see if there's anything else, because the question feels really relevant. There are a lot of young parents, or parents to young kids, who are wanting to connect and are needing to connect. It feels like what you're doing is you're doing little mini times. And it's a whole pile of them throughout the day. And literally it is like 1 or 2 breaths. Life is feeling really big and chaotic. I need a breath. I need a break. Angels, please help me. And I'm seeing the calm coming down over you and feeling and experiencing that spiritual connection. The other thing that I have popping up is when you do have time, and this might be something you do at night before you go to bed as part of your unwinding, is I am seeing you connecting with your soul within yourself that goes up and connects with God, source, universe, the energy where we are all one, and we're all supported, and we're all connected. And it feels like part of what you do is you intentionally bring that experience down into your physical body. And you ask that at any time you can easily go back to that, even if it's just for a moment. And like the way that I'm seeing this, maybe all moms don't do this, but I know for sure my mom did this. Sneaking out of the room, grabbing a treat out of the cupboard, quickly eating it behind the refrigerator door so nobody can see you. Like it feels like that's part of what you're doing, is you are literally taking moments out of the day. And the thing is that God, source, angels, universe, divine, creator, whatever your belief system is, they're wanting to connect with you. And so they're going to help and support you. They're not just going to sit there and say, hey, well, I'm sorry, Shannon, you didn't have a full 15 minutes to meditate with us, so we're not going to talk to you. They're going to say, wow, Shannon, that's amazing. You had 30 seconds that you were able to take out of your whole day that has been so incredibly busy and chaotic and crazy. Thank you for taking this time. And the more that you're able to take 30 seconds here and 30 seconds there, the easier it's going to be. And I suspect that it's also going to shift the way that you're interacting with your kids and open them up to more experiences. Because kids are like sponges. They learn from us. They take their cues from us. So the more that you're incorporating it into your speech, into your routine, the more that they're going to pick up on it, and the more that you're going to be able to create time within the day when you're spending with them with pursuing this. Shannon, that is such a wonderful question. Again, I kind of feel like Bobbi would have more insight because she definitely had, she had 3 very active children who were very young as she was starting doing her work. So I think we should bring that one to Bobbi next week as well. But thank you so much for asking, and I hope that there was something of value and benefit in it for you. Let me see. So, Pat, that's a really great question. Pat's saying, are we not allowed to leave this world until we deal or face with our life issues? And yes, on the one hand, that is absolutely true. On the other hand, it's kind of like a Roomba. So the Roomba is that little vacuum cleaner that goes around on its own. And that's the kind of the whole point of it, is that like it bounces off of a side and then it goes to the next place and it bounces off of that and it just kind of keeps redirecting itself. Sometimes those little Roombas can get themselves in a corner, and you have to physically go and lift and move them and put them into a new path and a new direction. If in this lifetime you keep hitting it over and over and over and over again, and it's not shifting and it's not changing, and like you're just not getting it, it is possible to leave this world with unresolved issues. We also have free will. And so let's say I came down to earth and I can't even think of an example. And let's say that I wanted to learn the lesson of forgiveness. I could choose, instead of learning to forgive, I could choose to just go off and say, hey, screw it. I'm just going to be angry, and everything's going to be everybody else's fault. And I'm just going to go around with a chip on my shoulder. And I could choose to live my life that way, which would mean that I would not have learned the lesson that I came here to learn. And so, yes, the ideal is that we would learn that lesson. We would learn all of our lessons before we leave. But sometimes free will, or just like not being open to learn, will keep us in holding patterns. And at some point, the soul says, hey, it's just not working. She's not learning. There's no point in continuing to do this. I'm going to pull you out, and you'll have another chance at another time. In that way, it's kind of like the universe being the coach of like a hockey team. And you can see maybe your player over there, they're really tired. They need to pick up their socks. They're just not doing it. You're like, hey, I'm going to pull you out. I'm going to put Joe in instead. So that can definitely happen. So that's how we can have unresolved issues from this lifetime. Yeah. Okay, so Sarah said, I did a tarot reading for myself for guidance and a sense of support. Awesome. And the cards I pulled were so perfect. Such great insight to my current situations. That's awesome. Tarot cards are such a wonderful tool. And it can be a really great way to, get some insight, but it can also be a great way to disconnect from what's happening in day-to-day life and take a moment to connect with God, source, universe, spirit, angels, whoever you want to connect with. And that was one of the ways that I really got going too, was no, I don't have them handy. I was working in a job that I loved and hated. It drained me, even though I enjoyed so many parts of what I was doing. And I started shuffling angel cards. And that would be the way that I would segue coming home at night after feeling like stressed and burnt out and exhausted and just not wanting to do it. And like, why? And I'd spend about 45 minutes or an hour every night, and I would be pulling cards for myself. So one of the things that I would say to that is, sometimes what will happen is you're pulling cards and like the messages are really murky, or they're not making a lot of sense, or you're getting the same cards over and over and over again, and like you're trying to make it make sense. There are a couple of things that can happen with that. One, you might need to clear your card deck. So energy, like your tools, they will accumulate energy, and you might just need to clear them. Things like uh, phrasing of the questions. The clearer you are in what you're asking, the clearer the messages can be. Sometimes if you're asking the same question over and over and over again, and like I'm not going to be pointing any fingers at anybody, but say it's like romance. You might be asking the same thing over and over and over and over again. And because you're not listening to the answer that's being given, but you're looking for maybe like a better answer than what was given, then sometimes your answers will get a little bit murky too. So make sure that you are not overly attached to the message that comes out. Like let's say you're wanting a yes for something. Yes, 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 yes. Pull a card. Oh man, it's no. Well, I better put that one back in. That was just a practice one. That was just a test. So, when you're asking a question, you have to be okay with getting an answer that is not what you want or not what you expect. One of the best things to do is to go into like a card reading, especially if you're pulling for yourself, without any expectations of what the answer could be, and allow that to come through. So I'm so glad, Sarah. I mean, that wasn't the case for you. I'm so glad that your readings have been accurate, that they've been providing you support. That's awesome. This is just for anybody out there who might not be receiving that kind of support. Those might be a couple of the things that are going on for you. Chrissy, hi. It's great to see you. Natasha, I'm sorry, we're not doing any readings today. We're just doing general chatting today. Yeah. Let me see. And Natasha's saying that she needs someone to shuffle angel cards for you. My hope is that you find somebody. Because again, I'm sorry, we're not doing that today. I am hoping that this Tuesday I will be back for my Connection with Intention show. I just haven't been feeling well and or haven't been working. So I haven't had the extra energy to give for that. But hopefully, if not this week, then next week. And Pat says, pretty funny, Erin. I love the Roomba example. Yeah. One of the things that I love is that sometimes I get these messages and images that are just really off the wall. I mean, like no pun intended with the Roomba being stuck in the corner. And Pat's continuing and she says, Pierre, I'm assuming the name of your Roomba, will not do something useful without my input. He's a real slacker. That's awesome. My nephew, when he was visiting several years ago, we had, I think it was an Xbox set up for him. And he was at my parents' place, and upstairs where the TV and everything was set up was their Roomba. And they hadn't used it in a while. So it was sitting on the charger. Well, he started using his Xbox controller, and suddenly the Roomba started moving. And so they must be on the same frequency or something, but that got the Roomba going. So awesome. Natasha, thank you. I so appreciate your understanding with that. And I'm so glad that you joined us today. I will definitely post soon when I will be doing another live, because man, I really miss connecting with you guys for readings too. Well, I just noticed we've been on for an hour and 11 minutes. 111. That feels like a wonderful time to say thank you all so much for joining me. It is always such a pleasure. I'm really grateful for everything that you guys have shared, with the experiences you've had with like past life, with your readings, with the questions that you have. It is truly a pleasure and an honor for me that you guys take time out of your day to be here. And I know Bobbi really loves and appreciates our community as well. We are so grateful for you guys. You're all just amazing. I believe that we will both be back next Sunday at some point in time. We're still kind of figuring out the best time to do it. Sundays are my day off, and Sundays are a day when Bobbi is working and doing readings. So, sometimes we come on right after she's finished reading. Other times, we come on a little bit later in the evening. We're still figuring out a time that works for us, and we just hope that it works for you guys. So somebody at some point on Sunday next week should be back right here on my Facebook and YouTube page. That's Heavenly Messenger. Also on Bobbi's Born Medium YouTube and Facebook page. And of course, Universal Connections on our Facebook page there too. So, yes, thank you again for joining us. I'm sending big hugs, lots of love and support your way. Look forward to seeing you next week. I was going to say at the same time, the same channel, but that's not true. We've already gone over that. So have a wonderful week. I love you. We'll see you